Mothers have a special place in our hearts and a very special position in Islam. But what's so special about the relationship between a mother and daughter? What are the highs and the lows? Join us for this discussion on today's Women's AM. Bismillah, assalamu alaikum, my beautiful sisters, and welcome to Women's AM. Once again, we are joining you on this glorious morning to share with you news, discussion, tips, and much more. As always, we kick off by delving into today's stories of interest in News Bites. Then, in Her Views, we discuss that special relationship between a mother and daughter. And in our final segment, we share some tips about fun things mums and daughters can enjoy together. I'm your host, Liz, and today I'm joined by Sister Zainab, and our special guests are mother and daughter team, Halima and Kayhan. Welcome to the show. Assalamu alaikum, sisters.
Alaikum salam.
How's everybody this morning?
Alhamdulillah.
Yeah, sun's out, we're feeling happy.
Yeah.
And we've got a great topic to discuss, inshallah. You know, obviously, Halima and I go back to the days of old. And I always think when I'm with Halima back into the early days when we were exchanging books and ideas about studying Islam and learning Islam, you know, like as a freshie, as a new revert. So what I really wanted to get from you guys today are your book tips that you would suggest to a revert or to somebody who's looking into Islam. I'm going to start with Zainab because you're always my go-to book recommendation person.
Okay. This is a difficult one, but when I think back to all the books that I used to read when I was starting out, it was basically Ideal Muslimah. I think that's a brilliant book to give that kind of overview, and it's quite deep. And there's the different type, you know, the different books, Ideal Society, and all those other ones. But I'm like a broken record. The Companions of the Prophet.
I got that,
Those two,
and I love it.
That's all I would read all the time because there's so much in those pages. SubhanAllah.
Yeah, it's so true.
It's just the embodiment of Islam, and it's really practical. So that's, for years and years, that's all basically I went back to.
No, absolutely, great tips. Kayhan, what about you? What books did you read that you might recommend maybe to somebody a bit more your age?
Like, I read this book, what's it called?
Teenage Muslim.
Yeah, and it showed us like the bad stuff about like
Society.
and
what you should stay away from.
Yeah.
So it's really aimed at like more your age group. So that must have been really helpful for you in the early days, mashallah. That's an excellent one. I'll look out for that. And Halima, what about you?
One of my favourites is From My Sister's Lips by
Naima B. Roberts. Yeah, absolutely. Read that many times. It never gets old, mashallah.
I thought, you know, it showed me like what I was like, and it showed me that like, she was going through some of the same things that I was going through, and it really related to me.
Yeah,
so
and that's so important in those early days when you're newly practicing, because I think so often you tend to think, I'm the only one, nobody else feels what I'm feeling. It's actually really comforting to read something like that and realise that, no, you know, many people are in your position. I think for me, I just loved reading the Seerah. When I first, just before and just after I became Muslim, I read about 5 or 6 different books of the Seerah, but I think the one that stuck out the most for me is When the Moon Split. Because I found that just very easy to read. The chapters were broken down into very, absorbable sized portions. So, you know, I really loved that book, and I recommend that to lots of sisters all the time. It's always great to read about the Seerah, isn't it? We had a great series on that not long ago. Well, Jazakallah here for your suggestions there, sisters. I'll look out for those, and please enjoy the lovely brekah that we have laid on this morning. And now we're going to go to our first segment of the morning. It's News Bites. In this segment, we take a look at the day's stories of interest and we discuss what's been happening around the world. We'd love to hear from you and your comments about any of the stories we're talking about. Please do call in. The number will be appearing on your screens throughout the segment, inshallah. So, Zainab, what story have you got for us this morning?
Today I have Spain. Children must do housework under draft law from the BBC. This is a really funny but really commendable article I came across. Essentially, children may soon be required to help out with housework under a new draft law, which is actually being approved by Parliament. It's part of a wider child protection law basically children under the age of 18 will need to participate in all areas of family life, including, you know, housework, and it's regardless of age and gender. I know any young viewers watching this will be horrified at the thought of it. It also includes being respectful to parents, teachers, and having a positive attitude towards learning, so that's really good. But it doesn't have any information about any penalties, so it's kind of more of an encouragement, I think, rather than, you know, being forced to do or anything like that. Also, Spanish men can face legal sanctions if they don't help out at home as well, apparently. So I was really shocked to see that. I was like, you know, subhanAllah, we have so many issues that we talk about all the time, and it seems that they're really trying to address those issues in society. What I really like about it is that it's encouraging responsibility, and I think this is something that's definitely missing, this idea of responsibility and accountability. It doesn't seem to kind of merge with this idea of kind of just doing what you like, seeking what's you know, beneficial and things like that. So there's very little kind of self-gratification that can be had from helping your mum, isn't it, in the house and during the household.
Together
but that's it. This is the thing. So it's actually a really positive thing. But from like a young person's point of view, and talking from my own experience, talking from a house where we have teenagers living in the house, it's the absolute last thing you want to do, because what do you really gain from it, isn't it?
Well, we've got a young person here. So what does Kyan think about the idea of chores being enforced by law?
I don't like it.
Not right.
You're not keen on that, but you do. You help Mum out around the house a lot, don't you?
Yeah.
You have to pay her sometimes, though.
You don't do it for love.
But it's just, I just thought it was beautiful. It really shows the importance of the mother, the difficulty of actually looking after a house. I think sometimes that's just seen as, that's easy. Look after the house, look after the kids, and we'll see what kind of shape you're in, you know, afterwards, subhanAllah. But also, it's just this worth, and it's just this beautiful ayah I came across from Surah An-Nam, verse 151, and it actually is talking about the different prohibitions that, you know, that we should stay away from, but it actually includes looking after the parents, which is a bit strange. So it says, say, come, I will recite what your Lord has prohibited to you. He commands that you not associate anything with him, and to parents good treatment, and do not kill your children out of poverty, and will provide for you and for them. And it goes on, and it kind of lists different things. And the brother, Nouman Ali Khan, the Ustad, he was explaining that this is a really odd ayah. It's talking about prohibitions, and it's putting in there that you should be good to your parents. And basically what it's saying is, Allah is saying to us that anything less than the best treatment to your parents is not going to be accepted. And, you know, subhanAllah, I just thought that's an amazing way of looking at this issue, yet is that attitude there in society and amongst ourselves. And it actually got me reflecting a lot about, you know, what shape are we, even as Muslims, in terms of the children's attitude towards parents. And it's quite good that we're doing a show today based
absolutely.
on this.
This is something that comes up again and again, and we see it again and again in the news about, you know, parents, particularly when they get old and vulnerable. You know, how are we as a society treating them, and how are we looking after them? And, you know, all the years that they've dedicated to looking after us, you know, are we really doing the best that we can by them, or, you know...
That's it, you know.
Are we letting them down? So, Helene, what do you think about that?
Yeah, I agree with what you've said, and especially as to, you know, having more respect from the children and stuff like that. I think it does encourage children to show you more respect, especially with that hadith that you just...
It's like the highest of respect. That's what I was taken aback by this ayah, that is the highest of respect, that you should literally want to rush to help your parents, especially your mother, and just the status of that. And it's sad that the status of women in general is not great, but definitely as mothers, it's definitely not represented properly.
Kind of, think about helping your parents when they're old, and you think that they can't do much and stuff like that. But even the young parents, I still think, you know, need help.
And there's so much benefit in that, isn't it? It kind of, you know, apart from, you know, giving you a bit of a break, it also, you know, it kind of breeds good character and responsibilities and that kind of thing in young people as well.
Absolutely.
So, really interesting article there. Jazakallah khair for that, sis. I've got an interesting article, actually, from the Metro today, and the title reads, Unhappily Unmarried, which is quite a sort of dismal prospect, isn't it? But it's talking about this issue of couples that have cohabited, that have lived together, unmarried for many years, possibly, you know, with or without children, and then if they split up and go their separate ways, this can often leave the women in a very, very difficult financial position. Obviously, because the financial laws, you know, protecting women in a relationship, lots of them pertain only to married couples. So a lot of them are left penniless. A lot of them have left careers to bring up children, you know, are now at an age and a position in their life when it would be impossible to kind of rebuild a career again, and they're pretty much left with nothing. And, you know, there's arguments that there should be, you know, a reform to protect, you know, people, particularly women, because obviously it's usually women that give up their careers, to kind of protect women in this position. And I just, you know, for me, I kind of think it's kind of an interesting story, because it takes me back to the, you know, the Islamic perspective, the Islamic guidelines on, you know, what a family looks like, how a family unit is made up, you know, marriage obviously being an integral part of that. Marriage is, you know, we're often told marriage is half of our deen. Marriage is something, you know, we should inspire to, where we're preparing for. We pick out our choice of spouse very carefully. And I think the thing is, we're always kind of thinking ahead. We're always thinking ahead of, you know, not just further down the line in the dunya, but in the akhirah as well. And obviously this informs all of our decisions about this. So, you know, I thought this was you know, an interesting article. We've got a caller on the line now. We've got Mrs. Ahmed from Leeds calling. Assalamu alaikum.
Walaikum assalam, sister. I'd just like to give my comment. Mashallah, you're doing a good show. And my comment is that our community is following more culture than the religion.
Yeah.
And like you said, that you get, it is a good reward of being a good parent. And if they did understand it more in detail, then they would follow it. But they're not really understanding their religion more, and we need to do something about that.
Yeah.
Encourage the children in understanding how rewarding it is.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Jazakallah khair for your comment there. That's a really good point, a really good observation that you've made. The sister was saying that it's very often we're following more culture than religion, and this is what leads to these kind of problems. You know, either with parents or in marriage, and this is coming up again and again.
Absolutely, I think there's a lot of ignorance in terms of even Muslim women, their rights to do with, you know, with their marriages or after marriages. That Islam is very, very specific in the way it deals with, you know, rights within marriage, outside of marriage, towards the children, their financial, you know, rights and things like that. And often we don't know about these things, and we're kind of taken for a bit of a ride. And like the sister was saying about the culture, you know, culture starts to creep into these things, or the desires start to creep into these things, and
these things just become the norm. I think that if we go back to wanting to do it, then I think it would be much easier for, you know, the children to want to be nice to their parents and stuff like that. So I think it's built on a relationship that they both should have, rather than it just being, okay, we have to do it, because you're doing it not really wanting to actually do it.
Absolutely. It's both acting for the sake of Allah, isn't it, and actually loving Allah more than yourself, kind of thing, and stuff like that.
No, it's true, and I think it goes back as well to what the sister was saying about, you know, lots of these things are kind of intrinsically built into the framework of Islam. So if we go back to Islam, if we go back to learning about, okay, what does Islam say about this? What does Islam say about how we treat our parents, about, you know, how we behave in marriage, about how we behave in business, then, you know, obviously there's going to be, these things are going to function, you know, much better for everybody.
And that's the thing, no matter what country you're in, no matter where you are, you're Muslim, so you stick by these rules no matter what. And kind of there's a bit of a disjointed thing going on here. It's a secular country, but yet, you know, this is a cohabiting problem that hasn't been fulfilled in the law.
Absolutely, it kind of transcends.
Yeah, there's a lot of different problems that haven't been addressed yet.
Absolutely. Well, Jazakallah khair, sisters, a really interesting insight into today's news stories there. And now here we have another quick reminder of this week's competition question.
This week on Women's AM, we are holding an exciting competition for you sisters out there. Up for grabs are three £50 worth of tuition vouchers from LCE Tuition Centre. To be in with a chance to win these vouchers, all you have to do is answer the following question. How many prophets are mentioned by name in the Holy Quran? Is it A, 35, B, 25, C, 20, or D, 124,000? To enter, email your answer A, B, C or D to womensam@islamchannel.tv. along with your name and address and what you most like about Women's AM. The deadline for entries is Friday the 2nd of May 2014 at 4 p.m. All applicants need to be over 18 and residing in the UK. Please note only one entry per person per household. This week, 3 winners will be randomly selected from correct entries and the winners' names will be announced on Tuesday's show. So get entering.
Fantastic prize there, so make sure you don't miss out on that opportunity. We're off to a quick break now, but do stay tuned, as after that we'll be back with our main segment, Her Views, where we discuss the relationship between mother and daughter. See you in 3. Assalamu alaikum.